6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. According to South Korea's top intelligence agency, cyber attacks by the North doubled last month, with Pyongyang targeting transport, financial systems, and media companies. With North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ordering officials to prepare nuclear attacks and conduct more nuclear tests, and speculations building over the possibility that the regime may attack the South Korean port cities of Busan or Pohang, Seoul and Washington practice military operations aimed at targeting Pyongyang's leadership. An annual ceremony to mark the Fukushima disaster is held in Japan, including a national moment of silence at 2:46 p.m. Friday, exactly 5 years after a devastating tsunami claimed tens of thousands of lives. South Korea's National Intelligence Service revealed on Friday that North Korea attempted to hack the smartphones of around 300 government officials and succeeded in 40 cases. The hackers were able to record phone calls as well as steal phone records and text messages. The intelligence agency also said that cyber attacks from Pyongyang had doubled in the last month. The hackers tried to access transport network systems as well as banking computer systems. Media companies were also said to have been the target of an attack in January. Earlier on Friday, it was revealed that the Presidential Secretary for Cybersecurity stepped down from his post last week, but it is currently unclear whether these latest attacks were the reasons for the resignation. Although North Korea was slapped with the strongest set of sanctions to date by the UN Security Council, the regime doesn't seem to be putting a break to its continuous provocations. Seoul isn't backing down either, calling for actions from the UNSC over Pyongyang's latest reckless behavior, Thursday's short-range missile launch. For details, let's turn to Connie Kim.
South Korea is seeking an appropriate response from the United Nations as North Korea forged ahead with a short-range ballistic missile launch on Thursday. An anonymous diplomatic source said Friday that Seoul has sent a letter to the UN Security Council Sanctions Committee on Thursday, New York time. The South Korean government has reportedly emphasized a launch using ballistic missile technology is a violation of the UN Security Council resolutions. Upon receiving the letter, a group of experts under the committee will launch an investigation and report the probe results to the UN Security Council. Japan has sent a similar letter to the committee, and the U.S. is expected to do the same. Sending a letter to the sanctions panel is a weaker response than calling for a sanctions resolution, but has significance in calling attention to the North's provocation. The UN had investigated Pyongyang's short-range missile launches in 2014 upon Seoul's request and announced a statement condemning North Korea's ballistic missile firing. North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles from Hwangju in North Hwanghae province into the East Sea on Thursday that flew some 500 kilometers. Pyongyang stated that Thursday's firing was hypothetically targeted at the enemy's port, where foreign invasion forces enter, leading to speculation to build up that the regime may be aiming to attack the South Korean port cities of Busan or Pohang, that falls within the 500-kilometer range from the North's Hwangju. Washington's nuclear-powered submarines and aircraft carriers enter into Busan port for the annual South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises. The two allies practice a beheading operation aimed at the North's leadership in Pohang. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And as the international community decides how to properly implement the strongest ever sanctions on North Korea for its nuclear and missile provocations, the regime's leader has issued another defiant call, ordering readiness for nuclear attacks. Kwon So-wha gives us the updates.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered officials to prepare for nuclear attacks and continue conducting nuclear tests. According to the North state-run Korean Central News Agency Friday, Kim made the remarks while attending a ballistic rocket launch exercise. He reportedly ordered officials to further develop and diversify nuclear capabilities to commence nuclear strikes against enemies on the ground, in the air, at sea, and underwater. Seoul's government called the North's threat a, quote, ignorant and rash act.
It exemplifies why strong, comprehensive sanctions on North Korea, which the international community is working on right now, are needed. The government is prepared to respond immediately to any provocations by North Korea.
Just earlier this week, North Korea claimed to have successfully miniaturized a nuclear warhead, publishing a photo of it in the North's daily Nodong Sinmun. Pyongyang's recent moves come in the wake of international efforts to bring an end to the state's nuclear and missile programs, as sanctions have been tightened on the regime. Denuclearization is expected to be tabled for discussion in Washington Friday, as South Korea's representative to the stalled six-party talks, Kim Jong-un, will meet with U.S. officials, including his U.S. counterpart, Song Kim. Upon arrival, Seoul's top nuclear chief told reporters that it's not an appropriate time to talk about dialogue with North Korea.
South Korea and the U.S. agree that denuclearization is the highest priority for any talks with North Korea, and that the current focus should be on sanctions.
The statement reaffirms Seoul and Washington's opposition to China's two-track proposal of holding peace talks with Pyongyang alongside talks on denuclearization. North Korea had been calling on the U.S. to replace the Korean War Armistice Agreement with an official peace treaty. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Amid rising tensions on the Korean peninsula, South Korean President Park Geun-hye's approval rating has moved up, according to poll results on Friday. Gallup Korea's recent survey shows President Park's approval rating rising 3 percentage points to 42% this week. Almost a third of those in favor of her leadership approve of her current policies on North Korea and national security. Meanwhile, most critics pointed to her economic policies as being the primary reason for respondents to disapprove of the president's performance. In local politics, the People's Party appears to be on the verge of a split after launching just a month ago. Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri Party, dealing with its own internal issues, unveiled a third list of potential candidates for the April elections. Kim Jong-un has the latest.
Co-leader Chun Jung-bae of the People's Party threatened to defect from the party on Friday if An Chol-soo, the founder and co-leader of the People's Party, does not accept a merger with the main opposition Minju Party of Korea. Kim Han-gye, the head of the election planning committee of the People's Party, quit his post on Friday in protest of An's rejection of the alliance proposal. However, co-leader An was adamant that he would continue rejecting the merger proposal.
Our goal is to create a three-way party system in the run-up to the April 13th election. Once victory is achieved, we can make the assembly functional again and end the constant political infighting.
The merger proposal was initially introduced by the current interim leader Kim Jong-un of the Minju Party last week, when he invited politicians who quit the party earlier to return. An himself left the party late last year after a split with then-chairman Moon Jae-in and promised to block the ruling Saenuri Party from gaining a majority in the upcoming election. Meanwhile, the Saenuri Party blamed the opposition blocs for holding up legislative affairs, although another extra parliamentary session kicked off on Friday.
The opposition bloc has been busy with changing names, creating a new party and looking good for the elections, while neglecting key livelihood and economic bills.
With much of the focus being shifted to the upcoming general election, the Saenuri Party announced its third round of candidates to compete in 62 districts, with no incumbent lawmakers being eliminated. The Minju Party also issued its second round of candidates to run in 107 districts, eliminating 2 more incumbent lawmakers from running in the April election. The People's Party unveiled its list of 49 candidates on Wednesday. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Seoul and Tokyo reached a historic but somewhat controversial agreement in December on the issue of Japan's wartime sex slavery. This weekend, one of the victims among the many outraged by the intergovernmental accord will have an opportunity to express her concerns directly to UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will meet a victim of Japan's wartime sex slavery for the first time. The Korean Council for the Women drafted into military sexual slavery by Japan announced that the meeting will take place Saturday at the UN headquarters. Ki-ron-ok, the former sex slave, who is now 89 years old, had requested the session ahead of a trip to the United States. On behalf of the other victims, Kil will be consulting the Secretary-General on their refusal to accept the landmark agreement reached between Korea and Japan on putting the wartime sex slavery issue to rest. The elderly victim will submit their petition to PAN during the meeting, requesting a formal apology from the Japanese government, as well as lawful compensation for their misdeeds. This comes after a report this week from the UN's Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which deemed that Seoul and Tokyo's agreement was insufficient and that an official apology and compensation should be made. PAN had previously lauded the bilateral agreement reached last December and expressed its hopes for better relations between the two countries. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Moving over to the tech realm, Samsung's latest range of Galaxy smartphones hit shelves across Korea this morning. Samsung says it focused on adding as many new features as possible and is confident the new models will break all previous sales records. Kim Min-ji introduces us to the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge.
Will Samsung's latest smartphones be able to turn the tide in the much-saturated smartphone market? After being unveiled to the public last month, the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge were launched in some 50 countries worldwide on Friday, including its home turf. You can pick up a 32GB Galaxy S7 for $690 in Korea and the S7 Edge for $770, both slightly cheaper than their predecessors. Samsung says they focused on addressing consumers' wants and needs.
Our aim in making the S7 and S7 Edge was to make them much more valuable and comprehensive than other conventional smartphones. We tried to incorporate in the latest models the innovations that consumers wanted in a phone.
So what are some of the features that make the latest models stand out? The glass and metal encased smartphones come with batteries that last a lot longer, water and dust resistance, not to mention some of the popular features from the previous S6 model. Samsung has also adopted a dual pixel sensor for the cameras for the first time in smartphone history, which will enhance photo quality to levels of top-notch cameras. Some of the first consumers who came to check out the products had mixed opinions.
I'm happy they brought back the SD memory slot. It really enhances memory capacity.
It looks pretty much the same as the S6. Maybe the functions are better. Honestly, with so many phones on the market today, I don't really think the upgrades justify buying a new phone.
Nevertheless, the tech giant says it's confident that the sales of the Galaxy S7 will surpass that of the previous S6, which sold about 38 million units last year. But with Samsung's local rival LG Electronics soon to launch its new G5, the industry's first modular-type smartphone, which can connect with various accessories to improve sound and enhance camera functions, the world's biggest smartphone maker is in for a tough challenge.
The design's not very different from its previous model, and rather than focus on innovation, it's more like being faithful to the basics. Rather, it's the new LG smartphone that's under the spotlight. The modular smartphone is likely to create a market sensation.
While analysts say the release of the latest models may bring a slight uptick in profits for Samsung's mobile division, they don't have major game-changing aspects that will win over consumers. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Those that tipped professional Baduk player and fellow human Lee Se-dol for victory over AlphaGO earlier this week may have underestimated Google's computer program. Our Kim Jong-un explains why AlphaGo's victories are no fluke.
It seems as if Google's computer program AlphaGO has the capability to learn just like a human. That's because it's based on an artificial intelligence program called deep learning, an information processing technology that imitates human nerve cells. But unlike humans, the program never ceases its continuous learning of Baduk or Go, not even for a second. AlphaGo is an improved version of previous computer programs, which was only capable of pre-programmed moves. AlphaGo is supposed to imitate how humans learn, but it may actually surpass human intelligence in terms of higher learning capacity. AlphaGo practices Baduk some 3,000 times a day, 1 million times in a month. That would take a professional Baduk player 3 games a day for 1,000 years to accomplish the same feat. In fact, it continues to learn even while AlphaGo is playing against professional Baduk player Lee Se-dol.
The improved version of AI is on par with human intelligence, while earlier versions were limited to certain features. In that sense, AlphaGO is an improved AI version that specializes in playing Baduk.
AlphaGO has been programmed to learn 160,000 Baduk game sets and learn to play 1 million Baduk game sets in a month on its own. Google's DeepMind, which developed AlphaGO, says the ultimate goal for the program is to solve real-world problems in the near future, building on the learning process gained from playing Baduk. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
5 years have passed since a massive earthquake and tsunami hit the east coast of Japan on March 11th. Events were held all over Japan on Friday in remembrance of the nearly 20,000 people killed and missing from that disaster. The Japanese government held a memorial service at the National Theater of Japan at 2:30 p.m. attended by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Japanese Emperor Akihito, and prominent politicians. A minute of silent prayer was held at exactly 2:46 p.m., the exact time the 9.0 magnitude quake hit in 2011. Following funeral address by Abe and Emperor Akihito, the theater was open to the public to allow offerings to the victims. These are the stories we're following at this hour. As always, thank you for watching.